What's happening everyone, my name is Alex and welcome back. In today's video we are checking out the latest electric bicycle from Kukirin. Kukirin is known for making electric scooters, but now we do have some bikes as well. So this right here, it's called the Kukirin V1 Pro. This is a fairly small bike that has 20-inch wheels. We have a 350 watt motor in the rear wheel here. We have disc brakes on the front and on the back, and this bike gets a range of up to 25 kilometers on one charge. With that being said, let's start doing a bit of an unboxing just so I can show you how the bike comes packed in the box and what you have to do to get this ready and on the road. Okay, so small bike, of course, pretty small box as well. The bike itself weighs just under 21 kilos. So as you see the bike right here, this weighs just under 21 kilos. I find this spot here really good to carry the bike around. So this is a bit lighter than most other bikes out there, mostly electric bikes out there. So to get this ready, you basically have to put the handlebar here together. You also have to put the front wheel, this little basket that we have on the front here, the front light there, and the pedals. So overall it's only going to take you about 20 minutes to half an hour to get this ready and out on the road. Okay, taking a look at the bike itself. Well, the bike looks a bit different than most other bikes out there. Since we do have 20-inch wheels, the bike is a bit on the smaller side of bikes, I'm gonna say. Now the handlebar here is also foldable, but even if you fold the handlebar, you're not going to be able to fold anything else. Now, since the bike is a bit smaller, of course, you can also have kids riding on this bike as well. And I actually had my daughter riding this bike for most of the time, I'm gonna say. But I can also ride this as well, even though I do look a bit big when I'm riding this bike myself. On the back of the bike here, we have a metal rack that personally I haven't really put anything on the back there. Then we have the 350 watt motor in the rear wheel here. And this motor has a peak power of just over 700 watts. And this power is actually quite powerful for such a small size bike, I'm gonna say. On the left hand side there, we also have the mechanical disc brake. So we have a disc brake on the back and of course a disc brake on the front. And the braking power from those disc brakes is actually pretty good. The brakes also don't squeak or make any funny noises, I'm gonna say. So I'm pretty happy with the stopping power that we get from this bike. On the back and on the front, of course, as I said earlier, we have 20-inch wheels, and these are road tires. I found the tires pretty grippy for regular roads. Now, with this bike, I wouldn't necessarily go off-roading because, of course, there is no suspension on the front and on the back, but on regular roads, it is quite comfortable. Of course, that has a lot to do with the seat. So the seat has a lot of padding and it is actually a very, very comfortable seat. And of course you can adjust this in height. So it can go as low as that and as high as this. So as I said, you can have kids riding on this, you can have adults riding on this. So the seat is adjustable in height. However, the handlebar is not adjustable in height. So this is how tall the handlebar will be. Even though with this handlebar I don't find the riding position bad. So you don't actually have to put too much pressure on your wrists. So the overall comfort for this bike is pretty good. By now you've probably noticed that we don't have any gear. So we only have one gear. And as long as you have power and the bike is assisting you, that one gear works fine. However, if you do run out of power and you have to keep pedaling, if you're on a flat surface, that's good enough. But if you end up on any incline, it is a bit difficult pedaling with only one gear and no motor assistance. So keep that in mind. This bike will do best on flatter surfaces. It also does okay on certain inclines, but if you look at a hill like this, so where I'm filming this video, it is difficult riding this bike uphill. So that's mostly because we don't have any gears, because the motor has plenty of power. But since we don't have any gears, well, this bike will not be ideal for inclines, I'm gonna say. Moving on to the pedals, well, the pedals are made out of plastic. They're also foldable, and you do have to install these as well when you take the bike out of the box. As for the battery pack, well, this bike has a pretty small battery pack. The battery pack is right here in the center. That's why the bike looks a bit more unusual, I'm gonna say. Now, the manufacturer says that you can get up to 25 kilometers on one charge. And if you're riding on a flat surface, that's totally possible. But if you start going up hills a lot, you'll probably get around 15 to 20 kilometers. It also depends how heavy you are and so on. So on flat surfaces, if you're just going in mode number 1, you will get up to 25 kilometers on one charge. Moving to the front of the bike, here we have our second wheel. Of course, the wheel is also removable. We have the disc brake right there on the front. Of course, we have mud guards on the front and on the back, and we also have a light here. The light is bright enough to be seen during the day, and of course, light bright enough so you can light up the path ahead of you at night. However, we do not have a rear light. We do have a reflector here on the back, but there is no actual light on the back, so keep that in mind. We also have this little rack on the front, so you can have a backpack in here or something like that. I find this a bit on the smaller side, so I think the bike would actually look better if you remove that. So since you had to install this when you first take the bike out of the box, you can easily remove that, and I think the bike looks better without it. Moving on to the handlebar. So as I mentioned earlier, the handlebar is not adjustable in height. It's not the widest handlebar out there, but overall the riding position is pretty comfortable. The brake levers are made out of plastic, of course for the front and for the back. On the left hand side here we have the on-off switch, so there is no ignition key for this bike. We also have the horn here, so let me show you how that sounds. So pretty loud, I think. The grips here don't seem to move at all. And on the right hand side we also have a throttle. So if you don't want to pedal at all, you can just ride using the throttle. It is actually pretty easy to do that. It's kind of like a motorcycle throttle, I'm gonna say. And then on the right hand side here we have the display. The display can be seen in pretty much all situations, so even if it's bright out like today, you can still see the display during the day. The display will show you how much battery you have, the speed that you're doing, your odometer, and the mode that you are in. Okay, so we have 3 modes available. In mode number 1, the top speed is 25 kilometers an hour. In mode number 2, it's 35 kilometers an hour. And in mode number 3, we have 45 kilometers an hour. Now, what happens even if you're in mode number 1, the bike wants to bring you to that 25 kilometer limit. So there is no way of riding the bicycle at like 12 kilometers an hour. So the bike always wants to accelerate and take you to that 25 kilometers an hour if you're in mode number 1, or 35 in mode number 2, and so on. So you find yourself going faster than you want to in many situations, I'm gonna say. So I wish that would have been a bit different, because you always have to kind of like brake to brake the bike, because the bike keeps wanting to accelerate every time you start pedaling. So that is a bit annoying in many situations, mostly if you are riding with slow traffic and so on. The bike always wants to go faster than you, basically. I also forgot to mention the kickstand. So the kickstand is on the left hand side. It's made out of a combination of metal and plastic, and whenever the bike is on the kickstand, it doesn't seem to fall even if it's windy out. So pretty decent kickstand. All right, next I want to take you for a short ride, just so you can see how the bike rides, how it brakes, and so on. So I'm basically going to take that camera, I'll put it on my chest here, and we'll go for a little ride. Alright, so let me quickly show you how this works. We basically have the power button right here. So you just power it on, and now the display comes on. So from this mode button here we can switch modes. That's the mode number 3, which takes you to 45 kilometers an hour. For this test we'll go in mode number 1. So basically after you start pedaling, you need a couple of pedals. The bike will start assisting you. You can hear the motor, and now the bike is going to take us to 25 kilometers an hour. So there is no way of, basically I can stop pedaling and then it stops assisting me, but there is no way to keep it steady at like 15 kilometers an hour, because as soon as you start pedaling it will take you to 25 kilometers an hour. You also have the throttle here, so you can accelerate from here, so you don't necessarily have to pedal at all times. And like this you can keep a steady speed basically, but without pedaling. So now we are sitting steady at about 16 kilometers an hour. I'm not sure if you can actually see the display on the camera. So we'll go to 25 kilometers an hour, we'll do a brake test. So on flat roads like this, it's kind of easy to keep going. You don't actually have to put any effort into pedaling. So very easy to go on a road like this. And we'll do a brake test here. So yeah, you can definitely stop, no problem. We'll go the other way and we'll go to mode number 2. So now the bike is gonna take me to 35 kilometers an hour. So as you can see, it really accelerates. We're doing 31, 32, and we'll do a brake test somewhere around here. So as you can see, you can definitely stop fairly quick. So we're gonna go to mode number 1 again. So 25 kilometers an hour. I like the fact that the bike is pretty quiet as well. We almost crashed into that other bicycle. So the bike doesn't really make any noise. Even if you go over uneven terrain, it doesn't really make any noise. So a pretty quiet bike. One thing I don't really like about it, it's not very, I don't know, stable, to call it stable. So the front end of the bike does feel a bit wobbly when you move. With other bikes, they don't feel as wobbly when you kind of turn left and right. This one, see, it quickly becomes a bit unstable. So that's one thing I don't like about it. It's not as stable on the road at higher speeds, basically. So that easy. This is how you ride this bike, basically. Alright, so to quickly conclude this video, for the price, because this is a pretty affordable e-bike, it's kind of hard to say anything bad about it, because it is one of the cheapest electric bikes out there. It is fairly small, I'm gonna say, so easier to store in most places. The motor does have plenty of power, definitely more power than those bikes that have a 250 watt motor. I'm not a fan of the constant acceleration though. That should be modified in a way so you don't actually have to accelerate to like 25 kilometers an hour constantly, or 35 or whatever. Even on hills it does okay. So overall, for the price, it's kind of hard to say something bad about it. The brakes are good on it, the tires are decent on it. The steering feel is a bit on the lighter side, but I guess you do get used to that. So that's how the Kukirin V1 Pro looks and performs, basically. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.